beauties, welcome to my channel, Delilah Speaks. It's going to be real talk with Delilah. I'm going to be raw, real, and transparent, and today's topic is going to be culture, curves, and insecurities. And the first part of this video is going to be talking about culture. So just so you guys know a little bit about me, I'm half Arabic and half Puerto Rican, and the cool thing about that and me being exposed to culture at a young age is that they were two different cultures growing up, and I was raised on the south side of Chicago. That is, I was even exposed to other cultures like Mexicans, African Americans, and people of other races, Polish people. And in the world today, we have so many people who are trying to look like the Kim Kardashians or, you know, the J-Los and things like that, and they aim and aspire to be someone that they may not necessarily look like, right? So in today's society, what I encourage you to do is to embrace your culture, embrace your journey at, you know, where you're at. Think about that. And being exposed at such a young age, I didn't really see too much of a racial barrier, right? And I just felt comfortable in whatever environment I was in, regardless if someone was white, black, Hispanic. I always felt comfortable. And at a young age, I also loved to dance and learn the dances from different cultures. And if I didn't, I learned fast. When I get married one day, I know for a fact that the man that God has for me is going to be someone of a different culture, and I'm so excited. I can't wait. And when I have children one day, something I want to teach them at a young age and the unique features that they have is beautiful. That's it, they're beautiful. Now let's move on to curves. So I have curves. I think I came out with hips first. Some of you may not know that I used to be a plus size model, and I have curves, and I love my curves. And the journey with me and my curves wasn't always easy. So curves and insecurities are going to be kind of tie in with one another. At a young age, I remember, you know, looking at myself or wishing that I was skinnier, and and feeling like I was overlooked at a young age. And it wasn't until I was about 11, 12, and my mother at a young age, she used to get me magazines like Bazaar, and I would look at the models on the cover, and I would, you know, think in my head, man, I'm not skinny enough, or, you know, and I'm not pretty enough because I looked different. And I remember being in my room. I was about 11 or 12, and I remember being in my room, and, you know, I believe in God, I believe in Jesus. So I remember being in my room crying because I felt ugly. How many of you guys ever felt that way, especially when you were younger, just in your room crying because you felt ugly, right? Because you didn't look like everyone else. And I heard a still small voice, and it said, I made you the way you are, and you're beautiful. And I was still crying, and I'm like, I kind of ignored that like small, subtle voice. And then I hear it again. I made you the way you are, and you're beautiful. And I kind of like, my tears, I kind of sucked them up a little bit, right? I didn't want to. And then I remember going to the mirror, and I remember looking at the mirror and telling myself, you're so ugly, the whole 9 yards, because once again, I didn't understand my concept. I didn't understand the true beauty of what my culture was and how different I looked, how that made me unique. And I didn't embrace that quite yet, as far as me looking different. And I remember crying in the mirror, and then I heard that voice again. I made you the way you are, and you're beautiful. And I remember looking in the mirror saying, God made me the way I am, and I am beautiful. And when I believed that, when I truly believed that and owned it, it was true freedom. I was able to free my mind, not compare myself to anyone else, not compare myself to anyone else. And so the cool thing about that, and knowing and embracing who God made me to be, and owned it, it didn't matter where I was. I embraced who I was. So whether I was at a black tie affair, and the majority of the people there were, let's say, Caucasian. Hey, I'm gonna fit in with you. Or let's say I was in a fashion show and there was different cultures there too. I'm gonna fit right in. It didn't matter where I was. It was just, I'm gonna fit right in, because I had to get to a place where I was comfortable in my own skin. And talking about being comfortable in my own skin, so 5 years ago, I decided, I had this strong gut feeling that I needed to pursue plus size modeling. I didn't know what I was doing at all. When I tell you I did not know what I was doing when I got into plus size modeling, I did not know what I was doing. I didn't know where to start, what to do. And I remember someone posting on someone's page that they were looking for Hispanic and Black models, African American models. And I remember replying to this post. I had a couple of selfies and they were so unprofessional, the pictures. I didn't know where to start. And when I got into the modeling game, I started off with a small boutique on the south side of Chicago too. And I modeled for them for about 2 years or so and loved every moment of that. It was a wonderful experience. And that busted the doors open for me to get into runway modeling. And I've had wonderful experiences there. I've met a lot of great people, and I honestly have met some people that weren't so pleasant. Even being in that industry, I remember sometimes women looking at me up and down like, I had to be pleasant with women like that. Like, hi. I remember at one fashion show, I'll never forget this. It was about 2 years ago. There was beauty influencer. She wrote blogs, right, on curvy fashion, and I remember being excited to meet her. I was so excited to meet this one blogger, and she was a blogger. And I remember running up to her and I was like, I'm so excited to meet you. I started following you. And I remember this blogger looking at me like, looked at me up and down. And she was like, you're cute. Totally disregarded me. I looked at her like, sweetheart, who do you think you are? But I was pleasant. And I think it was one reason because of I don't know, but I think one reason was she had a lot of followers. And in my head, and this is the Southside Delilah speaking, I was thinking in my head, I don't care how many followers you got. I don't care who you are. I don't care what race you are. Okay? Southside Delilah. Okay? Okay, I'm saved, y'all. I promise I'm saved. To be rude to somebody just because they're different than you. I was thinking, man, your mama raised you better than that, I'm sure. But I realized at that point she wasn't comfortable in her skin, regardless if she was blogging about curves or whatever she was blogging about being curvaceous and fashion. Now, going back to the curves part of things, as I got older, I gained a little bit of weight. And when I was in high school, I didn't really understand the power of curves. Let that settle in. I really didn't understand the power of curves. In high school, I was kind of dealing with some insecurities, but more so in my 20s, I feel like I was able to embrace my curves a little bit more. But I still didn't understand the power of my curves. It wasn't until I went on the runway, I would say, that I really owned what my curves were for this one show in Atlanta. And I remember they asked me if I wanted to walk in lingerie, and I was thinking in my head, I'm your innocent girl, and did you say you want me to walk in the runway in lingerie? I was like, okay, remember, Delilah, you are the canvas, okay? And as a model, you had to have that mindset that You know, if you didn't get selected for something, it wasn't that it had anything to do with you, unless you have a stank attitude, then it has something to do with you. But if you didn't get selected, it had nothing to do with you, right? It's just that you weren't the canvas that they were looking for. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. And I remember putting on this lingerie, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm about to walk on this runway with all these people watching me, and the stage was high, okay? And I didn't have stockings on. I went out in that lingerie, and I was like a quote unquote bride for this one runway. And I remember being so nervous. And when I went out there, I felt liberated. I was like, yes, these are my curves. Second show that I felt liberated, and the show that I walked in that I felt proud having curves, was in Latino Fashion Week 2015. I will never forget this. I remember we were the only plus size models. There was, I can't remember, maybe there was like about 8 of us, and there was all these models, and they were between a size 0 and 2. And I remember we had to get dressed right there. And when you're in modeling, and when you get into modeling, it doesn't matter where you're at. You just get dressed into the outfit that you're in, and you just run with it, right? And so I remember, you know, we asked at that time, hey, you know, where do we get dressed? And I remember they said the bathroom was like on the other end of, you know, where we were at. And I'm like, just gonna get dressed right here in front of these people, right? So I had all these models, like looking at us like, what were we doing there? We are on this same runway. What I did was I undressed a little bit slower because if they were gonna look, I wanted to give them a show. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna own it. And that's exactly what I did. And I walked on that runway, I'll never forget. And being Latina and walking on Latino Fashion Week here in Chicago, man, it made my world. I remember going to New York, and I visited agency after agency after agency after agency after agency. And you know what I got? Rejection after rejection after rejection after rejection. And I remember I was like, okay, you know, whatever, I'm gonna continue my grind, right? I'm thankful for Ashley Graham. She really broke the barriers. But owning yourself in the skin that you're in, and truly owning it, is when you realize that you're beautiful, is when other people can see that you're beautiful too, because it radiates from the inside out. You are who you are. In the Bible, I'm going to refer to the Bible here and there, and there may be times that I may say a cuss word here or there too, but so don't judge me, all right? Look around and say I'm 97% safe. That 3% comes out sometimes. The 3% of me not being safe comes out the way. So I'm thankful for all those people who gave me that opportunity. Now here I am on my YouTube channel, sharing my experiences with you in the rawest form. My 2 insecurities when I was growing up was a little bit of my nose and my legs. I have thick legs. It wasn't until I think I was about 30, and I would wear skirts sometimes, and I had a hard time finding like high boots because my calves were so big. And to give you a tip on how to find straight leg boots and the trick to getting them to fit you, I got a secret for you guys, so you want to tune in next week. Be on the lookout for that video. I'll start with my legs first, and then I'll hit the nose, okay? So I remember being insecure about my legs. I would never like to show them because I felt like, man, they're so big and the whole 9 yards. I remember one day going into work, and I was wearing a skirt this one day, and this one guy that I worked with He probably had no business saying this, but I remember him telling me, "Your legs are so sexy." I looked at him like, "What did you say?" My legs like that. And I remember like going home that day looking like, are they? But I've always worn heels, and I just love heels. And another insecurity, a lot of people would be like, I can tell you're like something else because of your nose and your eyes. Always been told that. And so an insecurity when I was young, maybe in high school, I would say, was my nose, right? I was like, oh, I wish I had a nose like, you know, at that time it wasn't J-Lo. My mom used to have a nose like her, like a scoop nose. And I was like, oh, I wish I had a nose like that. This is what is a part of my culture. And I had to learn that. I had to embrace that. I had to get that through my head. And here I am in the latter part of my 30s. And that's right, the latter part of my 30s. And thinking like, man, I do look different and I love it. You know, people can't figure out what I am. And I think that's what makes cultures and embracing your culture so beautiful. Something else I wanted to remind you of, and you know, you may have whatever belief system you have. I respect other people's beliefs, but in the Bible it says that we're made in God's image. And when I think about that, being made in God's image, and I think about God and I'm like, man, God is drop dead gorgeous. And if he says that I'm made in his image, then what does that make me? Drop dead gorgeous. So I want to remind you guys watching that God made you the way you are, and you're beautiful. Own it, love it, and be it. If you're culturally different or if you're not, be where you're at, whether you're white, black, Hispanic, Arabic, you know, Polish, whatever your culture is. Thank you for joining my channel, Delilah Speaks. Be on the lookout for the videos next week. I got some good things in store for you guys. And comment below if you have something to say it, subscribe, and share. Talk to you guys later. Bye.